Maybe you didn't know there was something called power of attorney. Or maybe your mom didn't really understand what it was, and whenever you asked about it, her response was, I can take care of myself. Or maybe you had it done years ago, and now when you need it, no one can seem to find it anywhere. I'm your host, Valerie Borgman. What can you do if you need a POA, but it's too late? Welcome to Desperately Seeking Senior Living, a podcast for sons, daughters, grandkids, and spouses who suddenly find themselves tangled in the search for senior living and care. If you like today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and check out our doable download in today's show notes for a printable summary of the show and a bonus tip from our guest. You're listening to our doable tips, short answers to your questions. Don't see your question listed? Send us a note. Then don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an answer. Hi, and welcome to the show. Last week, we talked about the power of attorney paperwork and how it helps you make decisions for your loved one when they can't. But what do you do if it's too late? That almost happened to my brother and I. We were so lucky that my dad had a good day and we were able to complete the paperwork. And that's really important because the notary is going to take a look to see that your loved one is of sound mind. The POA is a legal document that your loved one willingly participates in. They have to know what they're signing. But we've worked with families whose mom or dad refuse to sign POA paperwork. Sometimes they don't think they need the help, or they don't want to choose between their children, or there are other family dynamics at play. So today we're going to take a look at another option, an option that some would consider a last resort, and we're going to look at when you might need to consider it. The option is a guardianship. In some states, it's called a conservatorship. In other states, they have both, one for managing day-to-day care and one for finances. So why would you need to consider this option? In many cases, there is some form of cognitive impairment, whether that's Alzheimer's or a mental illness. Many times, this prevents your loved one from caring for themselves. We've worked with families where the neighbor called the family to say that their dad didn't have electricity, only to find out he had forgotten to pay the bill for months, and he didn't know how to fix the situation. Another family's parents weren't caring for themselves or the house or the pets, and a neighbor called Adult Protective Services. This is an agency that steps in to investigate the safety of older adults. It might be called something else in your state. Things get scary when your mom or dad don't recognize their inability to make sound, safe decisions. And they also don't want your help. In some of these situations, they may even sound very reasonable and convincing. They may be able to have a conversation with that investigator or doctor or emergency room staff. These small glimpses that these professionals get into the situation can sometimes work against your cause because they don't see the immediacy of the need. And this is why guardianship is considered a last resort. Sometimes it can be difficult to determine that line between our individual rights and our safety. That said, we're presuming that you have good intentions, that all you want is your loved one safe. You don't want them sitting without food or power or in filth. Or we worked with one gentleman who was scammed out of tens of thousands of dollars by those all too familiar phone scams. We're presuming that you're considering guardianship because you care. And not like that movie, I Care a Lot, about fraud in the guardian system. And I'll put a link to that in show notes if you haven't seen it yet. So, how does the guardianship process work? Well, first of all, there is a cost involved. You'll have filing fees and court costs. In Washington state, we've seen estimates of about $800 to do it yourself, all the way to around $2,000 to enlist the help of an attorney. And of course, these fees vary state to state and attorney to attorney. Here are the basic steps. First, you'll file a petition. You'll submit your reasons for needing a guardianship and include information on everyone involved, including relatives. You'll submit evidence, including medical information to support your reasons. This is where documentation is really important. You'll be required to notify your loved one and any other relatives of the petition. Now, most families we work with are having these conversations and usually coming to an agreement with family members prior to taking this step. But that's not always the case. The courts will then investigate, and a hearing will be scheduled to either approve the guardianship or not. Guardianship is a big step. You're in a position of making decisions for your mom or dad or grandpa or brother. Tough decisions that they may not agree with, especially if they don't even see that they're unsafe. As a guardian, you have a responsibility to make decisions that are in their best interest. You are responsible for their care. But that's why you're here, right? Because they're not able to care for themselves and they need you. While this may be an unavoidable option for some of you who are listening right now, it's always better if your mom or dad can be involved in making these decisions before they're needed through POA, living wills, and trusts. So if there's still time and you're not quite at the guardianship stage yet, try to have these tough conversations with your loved ones. It could help make the future so much more doable. Today's episode is brought to you by ClearPath Senior Living Solutions. ClearPath helps families find assisted living, memory care, and other resources. Find our contact information in today's show notes. Check out this episode's doable download in show notes for details, including industry terms and definitions we discussed, as well as a bonus tip from our guest. Have questions or your own tips to share? Leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, make it doable.